so that I can. Om Ajnatmirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yutam Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamcha Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Pada Sagana Raghunanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Sri Krishna Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Raghunanvitam Sri Visakha Lalitamscha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Putale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Paschartyate Prasarine Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Narayana Namaskutcham Ram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayam Dhirayet Nastaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagatir Uttama Sloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. Hare Krishna Gaurakumar Prabhuji, Hare Krishna Vallabh Chaitanya Das Prabhuji, Hare Krishna Jagannath Gopal Prabhu, Hare Krishna Megha Mataji, Hare Krishna Nityakshwari Mataji, Hare Krishna Vallabh Chaitanya Prabhu, sorry, Muralidhar
Vamsidhar Gopal.
Vamsidhar Gopal
Prabhuji. So I think today's readers are Janal Gopal Prabhu, Nupur Mataji, or Manishika Mataji. So let us start with Janal Gopal Prabhu. Janal Prabhu.
So am I audible?
Yes, Prabhuji, you are audible. And before that, I just want to give a quick recap about what so far we have been discussed in this chapter about Chitraketu. Chitraketu Maharaj is a righteous king and he was ruling nicely the whole kingdom. He's taking care of his subjects nicely, and he got he's taking the only lamentation he has. He's not getting children, so he married many wives with an intention to beget a child. So it is not happening. So he tried all the ways, and finally he was so much depressed. And by the God's arrangement, one day from nowhere, Angiras Muni comes to his place, and when he asks Angiras Muni about his situation, and request him I would like to have a child, especially son. I'm very desperately need a son to fulfill the Karmakanda rituals to my forefathers, also to me after my death. So then he asks Angiras Muni to get a boon, to give a boon to him. Then Angiras Muni sanctions. He says that so you will get a child. You will, as per your wish, you will get a child, but at the same time, he brings a lot of jubilation to you, and also he brings a lot of soka to you. So then he agrees, no, that's fine, because ultimately I want to have a child, a son. So whatever lamentation I can face because of him, but I desperately would like to have a child. The same thing happens to Dasharatha Maharaj also. When Shravan Kumar's parents, when they cursed Dasharatha Maharaj, they curses him, like they curse him that you, the same way in which we are lamenting for our son's death, the same way you also will leave this your body lamenting about your children. Then Dasilmar surprises like, no, how I don't have children and desperately want to have a child, and then this curse came in such a way that as though I am going to have sons in future. So little bit he felt little bit happy. He feels okay. That means I am going to get. Then that gives him hope. Then he goes for Putrakamistyaga, and ultimately he gets 4 sons. So in the same way, here Chitraketu neglected about the Soka condition. He said that, okay, fine, anyway, I'm going to get a son. That is the highest the goal of my life. So I'm getting child. Whatever it comes, no, I will face. Like that he feels. So in the course of time, he gets a son through his wife, first wife, Kurtadyuti, and the son was named as Harsha Soka, as predicted, the name predicted by the Angirasa Muni. So the name of Harsha Soka. So it gives Harsha, happiness, as well as it gives lamentation. He gives lamentation to the parents. So in the course of time, what happens? A king neglects his subjects, and slowly he focuses more on his son and his wife. So this causes a lot of envy to the other co-wives of Uttarjuti. So they planned, they made a plan to kill his son, kill the son of that Harsha Soka. So they poison him, and ultimately he dies actually. So that also we discussed, and how he was lamenting and all those things. We discussed on how the whole kingdom, all the citizens of kingdom became so they filled with a lot of grief and all due to the sudden death of the Yuvraj, and that and up to that we discussed, and yeah, now I think yeah, then you during that lamentation, Angirasa Muni again comes in the form of Avadhuta Angirasa Muni, and he comes, and then he starts consoling the king and the queen. So now we'll see what is going to happen in today's session. It starts with the text 4, Canto 6, chapter 15 and text 4. So Janna Gopal Das probably going to, or Manishika Mataji will begin today's session. Yeah. Okay, fine. Manishika Mataji.
Yes, Rosie, I can start. Jagannath Gopal Prabhu is in the train, so
Okay,
yes.
no problem. Yeah, go ahead, Mataji. Text 4.
Text 4. Yatha dana suvaidana bhavanti na bhavanti cha evam bhutani bhuteshu choditani shamayaya. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation. When seeds are sown in the ground, they sometimes grow into plants and sometimes do not. Sometimes ground is not fertile and the sowing of seeds is unproductive. Similarly, sometimes a prospective father, being impelled by the potency of the Supreme Lord, can beget a child. But sometimes conception does not take place. Therefore, one should not lament over the artificial relationship of parenthood, which is ultimately controlled by the Supreme Lord. But what? Maharaj Chitraketu was actually not destined to get a son. Therefore, although he married hundreds and thousands of wives, all of them proven barren, and he could not beget even one child. When Angira Rishi came to see the king, the king requested the great sage to enable him to have at least one son. Because of blessing of Angira Rishi, a child was sent by the grace of Maya, but the child was not to live for long. Therefore, in the beginning, Angira Rishi told the king that he would beget a son who would cause jubilation and lamentation. King Chitraketu was not destined to get a child by providence or the will of the Supreme. Just as sterile grain cannot produce more grain, a sterile person, by the will of the Supreme Lord, cannot beget a child. Sometimes a child is born into an impotent father and sterile mother, and sometimes a potent father and fertile mother are childless. Indeed, sometimes a child is born despite contraceptive methods, and therefore the parents kill the child in the womb. At the present age, killing children in the womb has become a common practice. Why? When contraceptive methods are taken, why don't they act? Why is a child sometimes produced so that father and mother have to kill it in the womb? We must conclude that our arrangement of so-called scientific knowledge cannot determine what will take place. What is enacted actually depends on the supreme will. It is by the supreme will that we are situated in conditions in terms of family, community, and personality. These all are arrangements of the Supreme Lord according to our desires under the spell of Maya, illusion. In devotional life, therefore, one should not desire anything, since everything depends on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As stated in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Anyabhilashita shunyam jnana karma tinavritam anukulena krishnanu shilanam bhakti uttama. One should render transcendental loving service to the Supreme Lord Krishna favorably and without desire for material profit or gain through fruitive activities or philosophical speculation. This is called pure devotional service. One should act only to develop Krishna consciousness. For everything else, one should fully depend on the Supreme Person. We should not create plans that will ultimately make us frustrated.
Thank you, Mataji. Do you want to have any comments or any reflections over this verse?
Pruji, before coming to this class, I was actually going through the verses. So on this verse, I have very few reflections. So here the situation, or we can say that everything is in the hands of the Lord. So if there is Krishna's will in anything, only then it will happen. Like it is said that not a blade of grass moves without the will of Krishna. So even when a person is taking his or her last breaths, we cannot buy time or do anything to make that person stay with us. If Krishna has the plan of taking that person away to, to Kal, then it's going to happen that way. So, but we don't even understand that why that everything happens according to Krishna's will, and we keep on cursing the Lord if something bad happens. And nothing is in our hands except for the karma. We just have the free will to do the karma, and by just complaining and lamenting on a particular thing which is not destined in our lives cannot change the destiny which Krishna has already set. So he can do anything. He saved Parikshit Maharaj by the Brahmastra that Ashwatthama had sent to kill in the womb of Mother Uttara. So he can do anything. So that was my few reflections.
Thank you very much, Mataji. Thank you for your inputs. Yeah, actually, this as verse in the purport, Prabhupada says that the seeds, when the ground is fertile, also sometimes you don't grow the ground is fertile and seeds are also like potential. They are having a lot of potential, but still you may not get plant. So this is all indicates that everything is in God's plan. Like no, cannot do anything else. I just want to share two things about this verse from my personal, like my friends, two examples. I have different examples. One is like he's a preacher actually. He's preaching Vaishnava cult only. He preaches like he's software engineer by he lives in Bangalore, and Sri Sampradaya Vaishnava he preaches. So he's one of the lectures I've overheard, like he was telling that actually doctors told him and his wife that you will not get children. You don't have some gynec problems are there from number 5 side. So definitely it is impossible. There is no medicine for this. So he wants to have a girl actually, a girl child, and so he was desperately, he's praying, like a lot of prayers, and ultimately he got a son actually. So this is we went to doctors. Doctors told that it is very. They're surprised that they're shocked. So how it is possible? There is no big problem with the child back inside the womb of the mother. So we don't know how. They're not able to give any explanation for this. So this is one example. Another example, there is many example, but I don't know whether I can share this in this forum or not. Actually, that friend was telling to me, like I went to his home. Then he was telling he has two daughters actually. So first daughter and second daughter, the difference is only like 1 year and 6 months. So he was telling during conversation, was very close to me, distant relative also, was telling, Kameshwar, actually I did not plan the second child. It happened accidentally. It happened. Then I understood that what is that meaning, like at that time I was just newly married, so he was telling that that happened actually. So we thought of leaving a gap of 3-4 years in between, but I don't know how it has happened. Accidentally, it happened. So these two examples gives me a lot of realization by seeing this purport of Prabhupada. He says that it is not we cannot plan anything. We think that we can plan this, we can plan that, and all these things we plan. We plan according to the present situation, but God plans because He knows future. He knows future of everybody, every living entity. So He plans according to the future of living entity, and then He sanctions which one is eligible, which we are qualified. So, in respect of all other material resources that particularly Jivatma is having. So, if once Krishna sanctions, it will happen. So even though he is qualified or not qualified for that particular achievement. So this is two examples personally I had. So that made me humbled, like lot of realizations, and that increased my faith. Like how people will try to have so many plans and they want to use contraceptives on the plan, family planning, all those things, and wealth planning, and this, that, and everything will come up. But ultimately, we are just instruments in God's hands. Then what is our duty? What we have to do? Anyabhilashita sunyam jnana karma dhanavatam ankulyena krishnanusharanam bhakti uttama. So in this, Rupa Goswami defines uttama bhakti. What is definition of uttama bhakti? This is essence of whole nectar of devotion. So, which defines nectar of devotion is instructive manual to make bhakti. How many kinds of bhakti is there? What is what is uttama bhakti? So, this is a definition of uttama bhakti, nicely given. Everything is covered in this only verse. Like now, jnana karmadi anamrutam. So, we are not. We need not be a jnana yogi. We need not be a karma yogi. Just bhakti, you do it. You need not become a bhakti yogi also. So you need not excel in bhakti. But only thing is, you should have 100% commitment and to bhakti with full absorption in your own level, with your own resources, whatever you have. That is the duty. It's like everything else will be taken care of proportional to your faith. So whatever faith, how strongly you believe, that Krishna takes care of. In that same way, ye yadha mam prapatyanti tamstaiva yadam. So like that verse also says. So we need not confuse anything here. It's very clear that everything is God's plan. That doesn't mean that we should not become inactive. So we have to do our duty, and the fruits, everything we have to. We should not do karma sannyasa. We have to do sannyasa of fruits of the karma. Whatever we are doing, that karma fruits we have to renounce, not the karma. So anybody wants to add here to this particular verse? So shall we move to the next verse, verse 5? Nupur Mataji, so do you want to read this?
Yes, Ramana. Thank you, Guruji. Hare Krishna, everyone. Dandavat Pranam. Text 5. Vayam cha tvam cha ye che me tulya kalaschara chara janma mrityur yatha pashat pranayvam adhunapi bhu. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. O King, both you and we, your advisors, wives, and ministers, as well as everything moving and not moving throughout the entire cosmos at this time, are in a temporary situation. But our birth, before our birth, this situation did not exist, and after our death, it will exist no longer. Therefore, our situation now is temporary, although it is not false. Purport. The Mayavadi philosophers say, Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. So Brahman, the living being, is factual, but his present bodily situation is false. According to the Vaishnava philosophy, however, the present situation is not false but temporary. It is like a dream. A dream does not exist before one falls asleep, nor does it continue after one awakens. The period for dreaming exists only between these two, and therefore it is false in the sense that it is impermanent. Similarly, the entire material creation, including our own creation and those of others, is impermanent. We do not lament for the situation in a dream before the dream takes place or after it is over. And so, during the dream or during a dream-like situation, one should not accept it as factual and lament about it. This is real knowledge. Hare Krishna. So the example of like the dream example given by Srila Prabhupada is really like it helps to practically imply this point, like talking about lamentation and being able to compare it with illusion, like how he has talked about we do not feel bad, like no matter how bad our nightmare is, we do not feel bad before seeing it, actually before falling asleep, and then after waking up we do not feel as much bad as we were feeling in the dream. So we know that it is not real, it was just a dream, it was just an illusion. So this example that how our situation is temporary, although it is not false as said in translation, but it is temporary, and this example, so I liked it very much. So this is all I had to add, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Nupur Mataji. And Megha Mataji goes next. We are eager to hear from you, Mataji.
Yeah, so I have a question. So from what I understand, we as a soul are connected to Krishna. And then what is the situation? What is the position of Maya in relation to Krishna then? So I know, like in Brahman philosophy, as they're saying, like in Mayavad philosophy, everything is sort of the same. So there is sort of no clear demarcation between the world and your body. But then, yeah, so I don't know if I'm clear.
Yeah, actually, Maya is also Krishna's energy. So it will act within the Krishna's advice only. It's an instrument in Krishna's hand. So anything, maybe anybody else wants to add here?
So, for example, if Krishna is a person,
Yeah.
and then soul has also a personality, then what is Maya? Like Maya is an illusion, like it is a reflection, as Vaisheshika Prabhu once said, like it is a reflection. So dream is sort of a reflection of a reflection, but then it is reflecting in what then? Because in Brahman philosophy it's very straightforward that it is all a reflection in Brahman. But then uh, in our philosophy, like what is Maya, or like any object that I see, it
I
is
can
reflected in what?
Yeah.
I
go
can
ahead,
maybe
Govind.
shed some light on this.
Yeah, please go ahead.
So in our philosophical system, Maya is actually, as Kameshwar Prabhu mentioned, Krishna's energy. Okay. But so it's Krishna's energy. So in one of the purports, I think in the fourth canto, Prabhupada writes that Krishna's energy manifests itself as yoga. So you see, there is something called as Yoga Maya. There is something called as Mahamaya. You must have heard this. I don't know if you know this. So
Yeah.
Yoga Maya is that energy of Krishna that orchestrates, like that creates an illusion in order to push us closer to Krishna. Like for instance, you can say that the Vrajavasis, they are in Yoga Maya because the Vrajavasis, they don't have a philosophical system, right? They just love Krishna. Yashoda Maya just loves Krishna in the form of a son. So she doesn't, although she did have that incident where she saw the whole Brahmanda in Krishna's mouth, and she was like bewildered for a while. What is happening? Is my son the supreme personality of Godhead? But then she started that philosophical contemplation, but that was soon cut short by Krishna's own Yogamaya potency. And then she again came into that apparent illusion where she started considering Krishna not as God, but as her son. So even the Vrajavasis, they say that, they are like, we should take care of Krishna. If we don't take care of Krishna, then who will take care of Krishna? He will die and things like that, right? So if they were really aware of the Krishna's supremacy in the sense of the philosophical truth that Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead, then that wouldn't have been the case, right? They wouldn't that. So that is the Yogamaya potency. That also covers Krishna's devotees, so that there is an unceasing flow of love, right? Now, Krishna's energy manifests as Yogamaya for the devotees because the devotees are devoted to Krishna, right? Now, let's say there is a Jiva who is not devoted to Krishna. So, for that Jiva, the same energy manifests as Mahamaya. Okay, the same energy manifests in a binding way to that Jiva, right? And basically, that is the material world. That is the world in which we live, which is taken care of by Maya. So, in one sense, you can say that the material world is an arena for the Jiva who has turned away from Krishna to exercise his own free will, right? But that doesn't it's not that the Jiva becomes a supreme, because that constitutionally that can't happen because the Jiva is infinitesimal, and so the Jiva is bound in the karmic laws, the karmic action and reaction. So that is how Maya is. So it is Krishna's energy, but for the devotees, that same Maya will push them closer to Krishna. And for non-devotees, that same Maya will, pull them away from Krishna and, cast them into the ocean of birth and death and things like that. And why does this difference exist? This difference doesn't exist because Krishna wants it to exist. This difference exists because of the free will of the jiva. So that is one thing. So explaining what the material world is a very important question in any philosophical system, and different philosophical systems explain it in different ways. So in terms of even Jiva Goswami, for example, he doesn't necessarily define the material world as a Maya, as something that is separate from Krishna. So he defines Maya as Krishna's energy, but she appears in that binding way to a devotee, to a non-devotee. But as soon as that jiva starts becoming a devotee, slowly but gradually, that same energy will, start acting in a way so as to push him or her closer to Krishna. So I don't know if that is okay, or if your question was something else, or if it helped.
Thanks, Prabhu. I think, like this is not an easy concept to understand. I need to read more. I was just trying to also understand, like, my situation, for example, like the things that happen in the world, they are illusion, but then, like we say, like Atma is unaffected by whatever is happening. So yeah,
Atma is
just
not
trying.
exactly unaffected. Atma is affected to the extent that Atma is attached, right? So it's like the driver and car example, right? When the car's windshield is broken, from an absolute sense, if you think of it, nothing happens to the driver, right? But if the driver is too attached to the car, that attachment is what will cause the driver to suffer. So that is what we say, that that is what we mean when we say that the soul is unaffected. So that is from a constitutional perspective. That is from an absolute perspective, that the soul cannot be affected by anything material. But then we also need to remember that the soul is now identifying with matter. The soul is now identifying with the subtle body, gross body. So anything that happens in relation to the subtle body, gross body, the soul will suffer in the sense that it will, because it is identifying. The suffering is in the identification. The suffering is not a constitutional thing that happens to the soul. So like that. And the things that happen around us are not illusion, in the sense that they are not unreal. Because if you say that the world is unreal, things happening in the world are unreal, then you are left to answer this difficult question that you are saying Brahman is real, right? And then how does something unreal come from something real? So you're left to answer that question. So the Vaishnava philosophies, none of the philosophies say that the world is unreal. They all say that the world is real. What is the illusory aspect is the temporariness of it. It's not that the world is illusion in an absolute sense, that it doesn't exist, right? Like that. So that is one very important difference between the Advaita path and the Vaishnava paths. So yeah.
Thank you
Yeah,
very much,
I
Prabhu.
was,
Yeah,
I was
Mansi, go.
listening. Sorry. No,
Sorry, go ahead, Matu.
So I was saying, like, I was listening to one explanation by Rasinath Swami, and then he was saying that this world is like a dream, like as it's mentioned, I guess, here as well. So it's like when things are happening in that world, they are real. They seem very real, but then from a third person perspective, it's not actually real. So like the third person knows that it's not real when you wake up, but then when you are in the dream state, then it seems real. So does this also like comes in the sense of like temporary?
Yeah. Dream is temporary. I think one of the purports, this one, or I think the previous one, explained that. See, the thing is, in the dream also, if you look at it, let's say you're attacked by a tiger in the dream. Okay, just imagine. I hope you don't. I hope none of us gets attacked by a tiger in a dream or in reality. But let's say in a dream that happens. So now the fear that we will feel is quite real, because it creates physical symptoms. Correct? I might, or I might see a very bad dream, I might see a nightmare, and my heartbeat might go up, right? Or I might start perspiring, right? If I dream something where which is not so nice. Yes, in a similar way, if I dream something nice, then that also makes my mood nice, because when I wake up, because whenever I get a nice dream personally, and when I wake up, I feel very nice about it, right? So this dream, it has the potency to create physical symptoms, right? So now you're left to question, then, okay, if the dream was an illusion to begin with, if the dream was unreal to begin with, how is it creating these real symptoms in me, right? How is it creating these real emotions in me, these real physical symptoms in me, right? So the understanding is that the experiences that you have in the dream are not in a sense unreal, but they are just temporary. They are just creations of your mind, which is again a real thing. It's not an illusion in the sense that it is unreal. Like that, you can understand dreams maybe like that.
Thank you,
So
Prabhu. Like this makes sense. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Jayanaga Prabhu. You covered a lot of subject about the controversy of Brahmam Satyam Jagat Mithya. Nicely explained about the philosophy of Dvaita and Advaita. It's very, very nice. And also, you differentiated Yoga Maya and Mahamaya. How Yoga Maya acts on devotees, how Mahamaya keeps devotees in illusion to take away from Krishna.
yeah. So one more analogy that is given, Prabhupada gives in one of his small books, is this electricity, right? Electricity, in the power plant, that electricity is electricity. But based on how it is utilized, that electricity for some people will be an AC. It will appear as cool, right? It will create the currents which function an AC, air conditioner, right? That will be cool. And for someone else, that same electricity will function a heater. So that same electricity manifests as heat for someone, right? So Prabhupada uses that analogy to explain this. So from Krishna's perspective, the energy is, his energy, right? But based on the inclination of the jiva, that energy will manifest in different ways. So yeah, and it's a moment to moment choice actually. We can choose to be under Mahamaya, we can choose to be under Yogamaya. Every moment we choose that. And yeah, this was a nice concept that Gaur Kumar Prabhu had explained once. It's a moment to moment choice. So yeah.
Very nice, Prabhu. Thank you very much.
I think Vamshidhar Gopal Prabhu has his hand raised, Prabhu.
Yeah, Vamshidhar Gopal Prabhu is there.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. And thank you, Jagannath Gopal Prabhu, Kameshwar Prabhu, for sharing your insights on this important topic of Maya, actually. And that highlighting that how the Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy varies from the Advaita philosophy in the sense that material world is also real, but it's temporary. And I really like that concept of Mahamaya and Yogamaya, moment to moment. It's really insightful. So wanted to share some more points about this Maya that I have heard about. Our literature explains concept of Maya in little wide spectrum, I would say. That on the two broad division is like Bahiranga Shakti and Antaranga Shakti. So all the spiritual planets, they are under the Antaranga Shakti, and Bahiranga Shakti is like the material world. So Maya is the Maya that we are talking about right now is Bahiranga Shakti. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gives definition of Maya in Chaitanya Charitamrita as Krishna hai Surya Sam Maya Andhakar, Jahan nahi Krishna, Tahar Maya Radhikar. So basically, absence of Krishna is Maya, or just like the absence of light is darkness. So that's why it said that in the Vaikuntha Lokha or in Golok Dham, Maya doesn't exist because everyone is aware of their constitutional position and their connection to Krishna. But as soon as we forgot our connection with Krishna, then it's Maya basically. So there are, and at some places it's Maya is the Durga Devi is also defined as Maya, who keeps us in control. by her Trishul of Adi Daivik, Adi Bhautik, and Adhyatmik Klesh. And then we think of ourselves as a mortal being and try to struggle and make our lives better in the material world, and thinking that if I don't get things here, I will. We end up thinking in terms of space and time, basically. So this effect of Maya makes you think like that, and then you suffer, even though that's not your constitutional nature. We are eternal soul, and none of this applies to us. But Maya makes us think us in that way uh, because of forgetfulness of Krishna. So and the same thing happens, like and opposite things happens in Vaikuntha Loka or Golok Dham, that they are always in service of Krishna, connected to Krishna. So there is no question of like space, time, and the delusions that we feel in the material world. Yeah, this just few points I wanted to mention.
Yeah, nice, Prabhu. You covered other aspect also, like very nicely mentioned. And Krishna Prabhu also telling a similar analogy, like messaging that, saying that Krishna is like sun and Maya is like a cloud which covers sun. So that means wherever there is no Krishna, that is Maya only. So that is a nice analogies. Almost we covered all the analogies, even from you quoted from Chaitanya Charitamrita. It is very nice insight. So anybody wants to add? Gautama Prabhu?
I just want to add one small point here, Prabhu. So once Srila Prabhupada was asked, why is Maya so strong? Why is Maya so strong? So immediately Srila Prabhupada answered, to see if your determination for Krishna is stronger. So Maya is always testing how strong our determination is for Krishna. And if our determination for Krishna has to be stronger than Maya, in the sense that if Maya comes to know that our determination for Krishna is actually very strong, then she herself will aid us, just like how Jagannath Gopal Prabhu beautifully explained, Yoga Maya, Mahamaya. She herself will help us go towards Krishna. But she keeps testing us before that to see how strong our determination is. That's all, Prabhu. Thank you.
Great, great, Prabhu. So that means it is allowing us to exercise the free will of Jivatma. So we are using free will in our own way, like towards Krishna or away from Krishna. If any Jivatma wants to use his free will away from Krishna, immediately Mahamaya will help him, and he tries to keep always in Maya and makes him happy. Like, and on the other hand, Yogamaya comes into picture when he wants to go towards Krishna. So the same Maya and works to as Yogamaya. But in somewhere I heard that Yogamaya works in spiritual world, Mahamaya works in material world. Some lecture I heard.
Typically, but typically that's the case, Prabhu. But you can't restrict like that. Because I mean, when Krishna manifests his pastimes in the material world, doesn't Mahamaya work there? She of course does, right? So like that. Yeah, that's what I feel about it.
Yes, Prabhu, that makes sense actually. Yeah, thank you very much for a nice discussion. And anybody wants to add any other reflections?
I just want to add one point. I love all the points covered by so many aspects or so many angles. I just wanted to also mention that the Maya, when we say Maya is also energy of Krishna, Maya is nothing but Durga. Durga is a Shakti form, and it's the consort of Lord Shiva. So it's not like we can always beg Maya to help us go closer to Krishna. That's one thing we can always do. Of course, Maya is always testing, and Maya is portrayed as very bad. When we are not in Krishna, we are in Maya. Of course, it is true for us to elevate our consciousness, to always think about Krishna. But we can always also be in a prayerful mood, and think of Maya as a person who can also help us go closer to Krishna by praying that, if we have any strong inclination or desire to materially enjoy or sense gratification or enjoy something outside of Krishna, or enjoy something that is that we cannot offer to Krishna, then we can actually pray to Maya for this inclination, for this desire to completely get eradicated, so that we can always offer everything that we do in our lives for the sake of Krishna, to Krishna first, and then include Krishna in everything that we do. It's not that we can all be pure devotees by choosing moment. Of course, we have to choose moment to moment, but we can always also beg or pray to Maya that please help us reduce this inclination so that we can go closer to Krishna. The sincerity of our prayers definitely will be answered. That's
Great explanation, Mataji. Yeah, I like that. Actually, yeah, Mata, we should not think that Maya is always like enemy. So she's helping us only to exercise our free will. And whenever we want Krishna, she will also help us to this like in the form of Maya. So Yoga Maya. So here they say that Bhadra, Subhadra. Subhadra is Yoga Maya, and Bhadra, that is Bhadra is in the material world. She's Mahamaya. So Bhadra, Subhadra. So that's this analogy they say that. Very nice explanation. So we covered almost all aspects about Yoga Maya and Maya, Mahamaya, and we got a very clear idea about it. And we had some idea, but it was completely brushed and clearly refreshed. Again, it came out the real explanations and all. So, if there is no other reflections, shall we move to the next verse by General Gopal Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhu.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yes, I just wanted to mention this. So I was just listening to a class where it was mentioned that we cannot completely ignore Maya. So be Maya cautious, but be Krishna conscious. So we have to be cautious of Maya. And the analogy that was given is like kabaddi, like how will you all know this game called kabaddi? Kabaddi in India, everybody knows this game, kabaddi. So in that game, what happens is it's actually based on a spiritual understanding, actually. So there's a semicircle of people, and then one person actually goes, and then he tries to tap one person in that semicircle, but while doing that, he himself should not get trapped. So this is how we should deal with Maya, in the sense that we should do our things and just be always in the mode of coming out of it, so don't get completely trapped by Maya. So I just wanted to give that analogy. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, nice, Prabhu. The kabaddi we used to play in olden days, like during my childhood. Yeah, that's the concept. Now you've given interpreted how it was framed. The idea, without touching, we have to go there without being caught by them, and we have to touch and come back. Then only you will get points. But sometimes, if you cannot do that, that Maya is very in a circle. They very strongly they try to trap, and if their strength wins, then this guy will lose. But sometimes, even though they catch hold of him, he struggles a lot and comes back to the original place. So that gives a clear analogy how a Jivatma should act in this material world. A nice concept. Now I got it. Like, what is the meaning of that game given by our elders, like in the olden days. Thank you very much, Prabhujis and Madajis, for your nice explanation for this verse. We extracted maximum out of this verse. Thank you very much. I am very grateful to all of you. And now General Gopal Prabhu will read text 6.
Sorry about the previous interruption. I was not cautious that time. I was unmuted anyway.
Yeah.
So 6.15.6. Bhutair bhutani bhuteshaha srijatyavati hanti cha atmasrishtair aswatantrair anapekshopi balavat. Translation: the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the master and proprietor of everything, is certainly not interested in the temporary cosmic manifestation. Nonetheless, just as a boy at the beach creates something in which he is not interested, the Lord, keeping everything under his control, causes creation, maintenance, and annihilation. He creates by engaging a father to beget a son. He maintains by engaging a government or a king to see to the public's welfare. And he annihilates to the agents for killing, such as snakes. The agents for creation, maintenance, and annihilation have no independent potency. But because of the spell of the illusory energy, one thinks himself the creator, maintainer, and annihilator. Purport: no one can independently create, maintain, or annihilate. Bhagavad Gita 3.27 therefore says, Prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvashah ahankara vimudhatma kartaham iti manyate. The bewildered spirit soul, under the influence of the three modes of material nature, thinks himself the doer of activities that are in actuality carried out by nature. Prakriti, material nature, as directed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, induces all living entities to create, maintain, or annihilate according to the modes of nature. But the living entity, without knowledge of the Supreme Person and his agent, the material energy, thinks that he is the doer. In fact, he is not at all the doer. As an agent of the Supreme Doer, the Supreme Lord, one should abide by the Lord's orders. The present chaotic conditions of life of the world are due to the ignorance of leaders who forget that they have been appointed to act by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because they have been appointed by the Lord, it is their duty. Their duty is to consult the Lord and act accordingly. The book for consultation is Bhagavad Gita, in which the Supreme Lord gives directions. Therefore, those who are engaged in creation, maintenance, and annihilation should consult the Supreme Person who has appointed them and should act accordingly. Then everyone will be satisfied and there will be no disturbances. So another thing here, this verse that Prabhupada quoted, when I first read this verse, then I was like, okay, if I'm not the doer, then why am I getting the reactions of the actions that I'm doing, right? It's an obvious thing here. Clearly, Krishna is saying that you are not the doer, man, right? Material nature is doing everything. Then the obvious question that comes is, then why am I getting the karma? So the important point to understand here is the word, this kriyamanani. So if you see the translation, it says, the bewildered spirit soul under the influence of three modes thinks himself the doer of activities that are in actuality carried out by nature, right? The activities are only carried out by nature, but we are implicated in karma because of desire. So this verse doesn't say anywhere that the soul doesn't desire, right? The soul obviously desires, and because of the desire, the material nature carries out the activity, and because the original desire was from the soul is implicated in karma. So this verse has to be understood in a proper perspective. Otherwise, we might end up thinking that, I mean, it's so nice, right? So nice in the sense that it's so dangerous if somebody mistranslates this verse and cherry picks this verse, then they can justify anything, right? They can say that I am not doing it, material nature is doing it. And so yeah, and this is the thing that Krishna, it's Krishna's energy that the Krishna, everything is happening under the will of Krishna. Maya dikshena prakriti. So the material nature is working under his directions, Krishna says. So everything, creation, maintenance, annihilation is actually being done by Krishna. He has just appointed various people to do it on his behalf, in a sense. So yeah, nothing much to add here. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Right. Now, Krishnan Prabhu wants to give his reflections.
No, I had a question. I had a question either for Jagannath Gopal Prabhu for you. You said the soul desires, but obviously the soul is untouched, right? From all the explanations of chapter 2, the soul, is it the soul or the subtle body above the soul that carries this desire?
Yes, so the desire originally comes from the soul, Prabhuji. But the way we have conditioned our mind, like that desire manifests itself. So like if you put a red film over a white light, although the light originally is white, but it manifests as red light. Correct. So similarly, we have the covering of the mind, right? And now again we need to understand the covering of the mind is in a particular way because the soul decided to indulge in that particular way, right? It's a very complicated mess that we all are in. So but anyway, to understand that is that the soul, although the desire of the soul is pure, the desire of the soul, Anandamaya Bhyasat, right? Vedanta Sutra says. So that desire is there, but the way the mind has been cultivated, that same desire for pleasure will reflect in different ways. So the Sattva Guna person will have sattvic desires. He will like to read books. He will like to, eat good food. The Rajaguna person will, have different desires. He'll be always, in search for more and more wealth, more this, more that. And the ignorant, the person in mode of ignorance will be, all into destruction. So, yeah. So like that, it could be understood. So the way we have cultivated the mind, like that, the pure desire of the soul comes out.
So is the mind a reflection of the? And the mind is separate from the soul, right? So the mind is influenced by the three modes of material nature.
Because the soul wanted it to get influenced.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Prabhu, can I add a few things here? First of all, I want to appreciate Megha Mataji's points on the chat. All her points are very accurate. So she's saying soul acts through subtle body and mind. That's why we say that the soul is entangled. So in a way, soul needs to realize its own position with respect to everything else. So I just want to mention one thing. So when the Yamadutas come, right? So it is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita 2:24 that the soul is immovable. So when the Yamadutas come, how do they drag the soul to the hellish planets, for example? How do they do that? They do that because they drag the subtle body. So when they drag the subtle body, because the soul thinks or is so attached to the subtle body, if the soul is very attached to the subtle body, the soul automatically moves with the subtle body. So they cannot move the soul, but they can pull the subtle body. And because the soul is so closely attached to the subtle body, the soul also moves. I hope you're understanding this. But for a pure soul, for a pure devotee who's realized that they are not the body, for them, the Yamadutas cannot move the soul. Does that make sense, Krishnan Prabhu? So, for example, with my daughter, just yesterday only we saw this. So she was holding the iPad. So as we were moving the iPad, she was moving with the iPad. Because we just dragged the iPad, but she was moving with the iPad. So similarly, the Yamadutas, they drag the subtle body, and because if the soul is so attached to the subtle body, then the soul also moves.
I got it. Now the image is very clear in my head, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Actually, a drawing that I saw in one of the books, Amal Bhakta Prabhu's Amal Bhakta Maharaj's book.
Yes.
Has this picture of the Yamadutas dragging
the subtle body.
Subtle body, yeah.
Yes.
It's wonderful.
It's all connected. That's why in KC it is said the two basics is, the first is I am not the body, and the second is I am not God. These two things we are taught from day one. I am not the body and I'm not God. But till the end, to realize these 2 points is very, very difficult. If we actually realize these 2 things, that I am not the body and I'm the servant of God, then just these 2 points can take us back to God. But we struggle lifetimes after lifetimes thinking that I'm the body, but we are not. And we think many times that we are the controller, I'm God, I'm the controller of everything, but we are not. So these 2 things, to realize these 2 things can take lifetimes. Hare Krishna. Sorry, Kamasha, please continue.
Sorry if I cut you there, Krishnan Prabhu, but yeah, I guess.
No, I got it, Prabhu. Now it's very clear to me. I think the reason I was asking this question again and again is because I just read chapter 2 and I felt that the soul was like was unblemished, but I think the soul and the subtle body together, but the desire comes from the soul and the subtle body reflects on it along with the three modes of material nature.
Yeah, I mean, in all this, from an absolute sense, the soul is unblemished if you look at it, right? But just because of that attachment, it suffers. So, yeah.
Yeah. Very, very nice explanation, discussion about it. But I just want to add a couple of points here. Actually, soul is pure. It is nothing to do with, as Krishna Prabhu mentioned, it is pure. But imagine a pure raindrops coming from the sky. They're very pure initially. The distilled water, actually, completely pure distilled water. When it is coming down and meeting the mud on the earth, it becomes contaminated. In the same way, the spiritual soul, it is pure. It is not. It has no desires. Nothing. That is true. Whatever Krishna Prabhu is telling is absolutely true. But when it is coming into contact with the material nature, the material modes will immediately act, and then it will contaminated according to the subtle body it acts. So where from this subtle body came? Subtle body comes from our initial births, previous births and all. We cultivated some habits, some karma we did, some bad karma, some good karma. We made a subtle body. That subtle body is attached to this soul. So because of that, we took birth. Suppose if we can able to destroy the subtle body and along with the gross body, that becomes pure, and again we'll go back to the Goloka. So like that, because it is contaminated, the soul is acting in this way according to the directions given by the Shakti body. That is one aspect. Second aspect is, and who is doing, like Megha Mataji nicely she raised the practical points actually. So one point here is, we have to remember according to Bhagavad Gita, Prakrite's Kriya Karma, that means actually three major things will be governed for any work to be done. First one is Prakriti, I mean Jivatma. Jivatma should desire for it. Jivatma, I want to, for example, my son wants to go to an examination. He wants to crack IIT JEE. So he will put all the efforts. That is needed, first factor. Second factor is, nature should help us. Nature should help him. Like that is Prakriti. Prakriti should support his desire. And ultimately, the third factor is sanctioned by the Supreme Lord. So unless these three things fulfill, one work cannot be done. So now, if my son gets good rank, who is the credit goes to whom? If he thinks he is the credit holder, it's wrong. I told him, like, no, if you are getting a seat, it is not because of your only efforts. This is one of your factors, and additionally, two more factors are behind you, and unless which you cannot succeed. You put your 100 efforts first, 100% efforts, first point fulfill. Second point is, circumstances should help you to put 100% by you. And third point, ultimately, providence should sanction. Then only you will get. And also, if you fail again, three factors will be governing. So you should not lament even if you fail, and at the same time, you should not feel proud if you are succeeded. That is the main intention Bhagavad Gita wants to give here. And destiny plus duty plus duration is the same result. That's what Vallabh Chaitanya Prabhu is also mentioned, the same thing exactly. So these three factors should be there to fulfill. That is a Prakriti. In one verse, Bhagavad says only Prakriti is doing. In other verse, subsequent verse, only Jivatma is doing. In some other verse, it says that only Paramatma is sanctioning. So putting all these together, only these three factors should be there to fulfill any desire or to fail anybody's intention. So I think that makes the whole discussion complete now. So if anybody has any other reflections, again, yeah, Gaur Kumar always says that immediate plus remote plus Krishna, like all these things comes from that only. So these three thanks for any event, we need to take attention in 3 ways. Immediate attention should be there, and finally remote, and ultimately the ultimate thing. So that point came from this verse only. Kala karma and die from Krishna. Yeah, that is true, Mother. Yeah, as you mentioned in the chapter. So if nobody has any reflections, further reflections on this, we can go ahead.
I'll quickly share the picture, Prabhu. I don't know if you can see my screen. This is Yama, and this is Satyavan. This is Yama and Sati, Satyavan. Sorry, Savitri and Satyavan. And this is the subtle body that is getting pulled by Yamaraj.
Very clear, very clear.
So now when Gaurakumar Prabhu explained it, it became very, very clear to me.
Which book is this, Prabhuji?
This is Mystical Stories from the Mahabharata by Amal Bhakta Prabhu. Amal Bhakta.
Yeah, that is story of Sati Savitri. Like, no, very nice.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, yes, Gaurakumar mentioned nobody can touch soul. Only with the help of shuttle body it can be pulled. Suppose if there is no shuttle body, so no, and soul becomes completely spiritual, and it goes back actually. Nobody can touch it, nobody can pull it anywhere, this way, that way.
So it ultimately comes down to the desire of the soul, Prabhuji, as Jagannath Gopal Prabhu was constantly mentioning. If the soul has no desire to be attached to the subtle body, and if the soul only desires Krishna, the soul will go back to Krishna.
Yeah.
That strong desire is what we have to cultivate over a period of time. That's all.
That means at that point, once the soul reaches to that point, automatically shuttle body dissolves.
Yeah.
Once it dissolves, it freely goes to back to his original mode.
Yes. Thank you.
Shall we go to the? Thank you very much for everybody. So nicely discussion. So then now again coming back to Manishika Mataji, text 7.
Text 7.
Yes, ma'am.
Dehino Rajan Dehad Deho Bijayate Bijad Eva Yatha Bijam Dehi Artha Eva Shashvata. Translation. As from one seed, another seed is generated, O king. So from one body, the body of the father, through another body, the body of the mother, a third body is generated, the body of a son. As the elements of the material body are eternal, the living entity who appears through these material elements is also eternal. Purport. From Bhagavad Gita, we understand that there are two energies, namely the superior energy and inferior energy. Inferior energy consists of the 5 gross and 3 subtle material elements. The living entity, who represents the superior energy, appears in different types of bodies through these elements by manipulation or supervision of the material energy. Actually, both the material and spiritual energies, matter and spirit, exist eternally as potencies of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The potent entity is the Supreme Person. Since the spiritual energy, the living being, who is part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, desires to enjoy this material world, the Lord gives him a chance to accept different types of material bodies and enjoy or suffer in different material conditions. Factually, the spiritual energy, the living entity who desires to enjoy material things, is manipulated by the Supreme Lord. The so-called father and mother have nothing to do with the living entity. As a result of his own choice and karma, the living being takes different bodies through the agency of so-called fathers and mothers. Rudy, I have nothing to add, but I would like to hear from all of you the purports of each and every.
Okay. Okay, Mataji. Then yeah, let us hear from others. So, any reflections? I think any comments by any other from other participants? Actually, here in this verse, he is explaining the whole philosophy is being explained by Angirasa and Narada to King Chitraketu. He is telling that the independence of soul, like temporary relation between material bodies, that is the main intention. They want to slowly establish that fact that this body is only temporarily connected in this life only. It's not in past, neither in past nor in future. This is in no way connected to you. That's what they want to establish this fact before Chitraketu. That's the idea. So he's telling that the one seed to another seed. So father and mother gives birth to a child. That means that body of the child belongs to them, and or came from those two only in this life. So this is not connected to the previous, or not going to be connected in the future next life. That is the idea. So anybody wants to add anything here? Otherwise, we will move to next verse. Text 8. Now Nupur will read. Nupur Mataji?
Yes, Ruji.
Yeah.
Text.
Go ahead.
Okay, Ruji, thank you. देहादेहि विभागो अयम् अविवेकाकृता पुरा जाति व्यक्ति विभागो अयम् यथा वास्तुनि कल्पिता. Translation. Divisions of generalization and specification, such as nationality and individuality, are the imaginations of persons who are not advanced in knowledge. Purport. Actually, there are two energies, material and spiritual. Both of them are ever existing because they are emanations from the eternal truth, the Supreme Lord. Because the individual soul, the individual living entity, has desired to act in forgetfulness of his original identity since time immemorial, he is accepting different positions in material bodies and being designated according to many divisions of nationality, community, society, species, and so on. Hare Krishna. I think like the verse, like Srila Prabhupada has very clearly mentioned what we are discussing in this verse, like the two energies which we were already discussing, and the desires of soul and our tendencies to forget our own identity. This reminds me of the bhajan by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Bulaiya Tumhare. So, yes, Ruji, I do not have much to add here.
Can you tell us which verse of the bhajan that reminds you of this?
Ruji, reminds me of the whole song, but again, the Vidyare Gorave Brahmi Deshe Deshe. First of all, it reminds me of that. And the another thing, the main thing it reminds me, I do not remember the lines, but in when I was in the womb, I promised to pray, like I'll be praying. But when I came out into this world, I was so entangled in the material things that I forgot to pray. I do not remember the bhajan lines.
Yeah,
But,
perfect. Yeah, very nicely said. Yeah. So when we're in the womb, we all pray by folding our hands that Krishna, when I come out of this womb, I'll completely worship you. But as soon as we come out, we get so caught up that we start thinking that I belong to this nation, this community, this society, this species, and so on. And we completely forget that promise we made in the womb. That is what Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying, that I made that promise in the womb, but I'm so this thing that I forgot you, Krishna. Boliya Tumhare. That's what I forgot you, Krishna. That's the point here. Thank you for bringing that up.
Can you post that bhajan? Actually, Krishna Prabhu is asking that.
Yes, I'll
bhajan in
post
which
it. I'll post it. Yeah.
Actually, in which the soul prays to Krishna in the womb. That is also mentioned here in the same bhajan.
Let me check. Oh yeah. Second verse. While still in the unbearable fetters of my mother's womb, I saw you before me. You revealed yourself, but briefly.
Do you see my screen?
And then.
Yeah. While still in the unbearable fetters of my mother's womb, I saw you before me. You revealed yourself, but briefly, and then abandoned this poor servant of yours. At that moment, I swore to worship you after taking birth. But birth came, and with it, the network of worldly illusion, which robbed me of all good sense. As a fondled son in the lap of relatives, I passed my time smiling and laughing. My parents' affection helped me to forget the pangs of birth, and I thought the world was very nice. Day by day, I grew and soon began playing with other boys. Shortly, my powers of understanding emerged. I read and studied my lessons incessantly. This is the verse that Nupur was quoting. Traveling from place to place, proud of my education, Vidyara Gaurave, Brahme Dese Dese, Dana Uparjana Kori. I grew wealthy and maintained my family with undivided attention. O Lord Hari, I forgot you. Now in old age, Bhaktivinoda is sad. He weeps. I failed to worship you, O Lord, and instead passed my life in vain. What will be my fate now? Of course, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur is telling this out in humility. But when I first read this bhajan, I was telling Gaurang Prabhu that how does Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur know my entire life? Because this is exactly how we also, traveling from place to place, proud of my education. I grew wealthy, maintained my family with undivided attention. Oh Lord Hari, I forgot you. So yeah, so this is the bhajan. Thank you, Nupur, for bringing this bhajan to our attention. Thank you.
Very nice, Prabhu. And it's very relevant. And this is we need to remember forever. Like Bhagavad is really very touching. And anybody, any reflections or any comments on this particular verse? So the individuals will forget it.
So Prabhu,
Now,
we have ended a section right now. So, and it's also 10 o'clock. I think if it's okay, we can end now, or if you want to do one more verse, we can do it. But we cannot.
Actually, next two verses, they don't have purport, I think. No, only translation.
Yes. Okay. Do you want to just finish off quickly reading that and we'll end?
Yeah, 9 and 10, Jagannath Gopal Prabhu can finish, both, you can read.
Okay, Prabhu. To save time, I'll read the English directly.
Yeah, both text, you can go ahead.
Yeah. Sri Shukadev Goswami continued. Thus enlightened by the instructions of Narada and Angira, King Chitraketu became hopeful with knowledge. Wiping his shriveled face with his hand, the king began to speak. King Chitraketu said, "You have both come here dressed like Avadhutas, liberated persons, just to cover your identities. But I see that of all men, you are the most elevated in awareness. You know everything as it is. Therefore, you are the greatest of all great personalities."
So I have a quick question here, Prabhu. So why Angira and Narada came in disguise? Why they did not come in original form like earlier? Angira's Muni came and instructed. No, why not now? Any idea? Like anybody can answer this question.
They came in their original form, right?
No, they came in Avadhuta because but Chitraketu did not identify them. He's asking now, who are you? He's asking, you know, everything is there. Therefore, you are the greatest of all praise patansis. And you both came here dressed like Avadhutas, liberated persons, just to cover your identities. So that means, I don't know, maybe the next verses will reveal this, but I really, when I read this, I got this doubt.
Went there with Narad Rishi. No, but I think we discussed last time, right? That Chitraketu is even listening to their instructions because Angira had invested in that relationship, right? We had discussed last time. Otherwise, Chitraketu was in such a deep state of lamentation that any Tom, Dick, and Harry would come and tell him anything, he wouldn't have listened. But he listened to Angira Muni because Angira Muni had invested in him previously by coming and giving him the boon of the sun, right? So I think he knew to begin with that
Okay.
this is Angira Muni. I don't know. So you can correct me if I'm wrong.
I also thought like that, but this purport, no, this translation, who are you? He's asking. Therefore, you are the greatest of all personalities, and both come here dressed like Avadhutas. So that when I read that I got this idea. Like this question, maybe next verse maybe it will be known, or maybe they came as it is. I don't know.
Avadhutas. How do Avadhutas dress? I don't know. The Avadhut Brahmana didn't wear a dress when the one who is described in Bhagavatam, right? Vamsidhar Gopal Prabhu. I don't know. Anyway, we can think about this and maybe discuss next time.
Okay. Maybe next session we'll take it forward. And thank you very much for everybody. We got really very nice discussion, especially among especially about Maya and Yogamaya, and very clear definition in all the aspects we covered actually, including Chaitanya Charitamrita, and also internal energy, like how it acts, like shuttle body, soul, and core philosophy we touched everywhere. Very nice. Thank you very much for all of your participation.